Now the next that we take up is poverty in India. Now poverty in India is measured by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission measures poverty in India by the data provided by NSSO. NSSO is National Sample Survey Organization. It collects a sample from households, around 1 lakh plus households they survey, and from there whatever information they get, that is used by the Planning Commission to derive at the level of poverty in India. Earlier, Planning Commission calculated poverty in terms of consumption of calories. They said there is a minimum level of calorie intake that is essential for survival. If you intake that level of calorie, you are not poor or you are above poverty line. But if you cannot even manage that level of calorie intake, then you are below poverty line. What was that level set? That was 2100 calorie intake per day for urban people who live in cities, and it was 2400 calorie intake for rural people which live in villages. You can remember this by urban people are more calorie conscious, so lesser calories for them. So 2100 calories intake per day was essential for urban people to survive, and it was 2400 for rural people. But this was earlier. Now things have changed. Now before we know what the changes have been, let us know how does NSSO collects its data. NSSO, as I told you, it collects data from 1 lakh households. Survey is done and they ask about the expenditure pattern of that household, how they spend their money. Now there are two types of recall period. Recall is, can you recall when you last went for a movie? I am asking you to remember, recollect when you last watched a movie. So this is what recall period is, remembering. One was uniform recall period, where they expected the people to tell them that how they have had their consumption pattern in the last 30 days. And the other was mixed recall period, where they asked for 365 days reference period or recall period, that how their consumption pattern has been in the past 365 days. Now, if you ask somebody what expenditure you have done in the last 30 days, you will generally talk about the expenditure you have done on food items. Like every month we spend something on grocery, a fixed consumption pattern that we do, or consumption expenditure that we do on food items, vegetables, grocery. This is what we do. And when we talk of 365 days, complete year, so there we take into consideration mainly non-food items like clothing, footwear, education, medical expenditure and durable goods. What are the expenditures that have been done on these things? Earlier, the estimation of poverty was done on the basis of uniform recall period. It was that on last 30 days how you have spent, and on that basis they used to calculate the poverty line. But now recently MRP has been used, or mixed recall period has been used for calculating the poverty line. So earlier we used to measure poverty on the basis of URP. But then it was said that it had certain disadvantage. For your survival, you do not only need food. There are other expenditures also that need to be incurred in order to have a decent lifestyle or decent standard of living. Like you need to spend on your clothes, you need to spend on durable goods and on medical expenses and education, etc. So these things also should be taken into consideration. So in order to get over these disadvantages, we have shifted from URP to MRP. Now the estimates are done on MRP basis, on the mixed recall period basis, and earlier they were done on the basis of URP or uniform recall period. So earlier it was said that the main basis of measuring the poverty was on the basis of calorie. The period that was used was URP. On the uniform recall period, they calculated the intake of calorie. But then it was said that there are many disadvantages of this measurement, because you not only need to spend on food, but in order to have a decent standard of living, you also need to spend on non-food items like clothing, footwear, education and medical expenses, etc. to have a decent standard of living. So, poverty line should be measured in these terms, that whether a person can afford these things as well or not. So, mixed recall period was taken into consideration to calculate or to measure poverty. Earlier it was uniform recall period, and then now we use mixed recall period for estimating poverty in India. Planning Commission is the body that estimates poverty in India with the help of the data provided by NSSO. The nodal agency for calculating number of people living below poverty line is Planning Commission. And it does it with the help of data provided by NSSO. As I told you, NSSO does survey of each household. They calculate the monthly expenditure of each household. What is their monthly consumption expenditure? How much they spend on consumption of food items as well as non-food items. Then they divide it by the number of people in that family. Number of people in their household. And then they arrive at monthly per capita expenditure. On the basis of this monthly per capita expenditure, we calculate the poverty line, or we measure the poverty line. This was done by Tendulkar report, which was submitted for revising the patterns of measurement of poverty. A Tendulkar committee was set up, which had submitted its report, and it calculated poverty on the basis of MRP, or the mixed recall period. And they said that any household that has a monthly per capita expenditure of ₹1,000 for urban areas is above poverty line. And if an household has a monthly per capita expenditure of less than ₹1,000 in an urban area, will fall below poverty line. So, ₹1,000 monthly per capita expenditure, that is per person monthly. If you are spending ₹1,000, if as a person you are spending ₹1,000 on yourself per month, you are above poverty line. But if you are not spending, if you are not consuming, if your consumption expenditure is not 1,000, then you are below poverty line. This I am talking about urban areas. So on an average, it comes out that ₹36 daily if you are spending on your survival, then you are above poverty line. And similarly for the rural area, it is ₹816. So according to Tendulkar report, if the monthly per capita expenditure is ₹1,000 for urban areas, if you are doing that expenditure, you are above poverty line, and if it is not so, then you are below poverty line. Because of the measurement, the change in the measurement techniques, the percentage of population below poverty line has reduced considerably. At the moment, 22% of our population is below poverty line. And in 1990s, nearly 50%, 45% plus population was below poverty line. So when we see the data, we say that okay, it has reduced considerably. From 45% we have come to 22% of population below poverty line. But actually it is not so. Still there is high malnutrition in our country. Children below the age of 3, nearly 40% of the children under 3 years of age are still malnutrited. So when it comes on the basis of development of the society, education facility, the health structure and the health services and you say the quality of people, the standard of life they are living, we are still a long way to go. But when we see data wise, only 22% of the population is below poverty line. Now the way of measuring poverty has also changed over the years. As I had told you, poverty is not, you cannot view poverty in isolation. It is about you do not have that much money, so you are poor. It is that you do not afford a standard of life, and suitable standard of life you cannot have, then also you are said to be poor or poverty stricken. So poverty is a multi-dimensional thing. So now poverty is measured by Human Development HDR Index, by Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index MPI, and on that basis India has a poverty of 0.283. Human Development Report 2010 measured poverty in terms of multi-dimensional poverty, and what the factors that they used. MPI used standard of living, education, and health. On these three factors, they measured poverty, and India's index came out to be at 0.283. So this is how poverty is measured in India on the basis of URP, Uniform Recall Period, and MRP, Mixed Recall Period. Mixed Recall Period is a reference period of 1 year or 365 days. And on that basis, it is calculated that if monthly per capita expenditure of a person is less than 1,000 rupees in urban areas, he is below poverty line.